Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here this morning, and thank you for inviting me to your beautiful campus. This is an amazing place. And special thanks to my family members who showed up this morning. My daughter, Christina, and my niece, who I had no idea was going to show up here this morning. Thank you, Lee, for being here. This is great. It's all about the cooking part, right? You wanted to hear more about that, like you haven't been a part of it. But anyway, thank you for being here, and I know that you didn't get out of bed this morning because you knew there was a cookbook author on the agenda. I don't think that's what motivated you. And I promise I won't share recipes during the talk, and I won't teach you how to make creme brulee, okay? But I hope you're here because you want to be better leaders. You want to motivate your teams. You want to ensure successful outcomes. You want your teams to respect you. You want to get them charged up and motivated. If that's why you're here this morning, then I hope I can meet your expectations. My goals this morning are twofold. Number one, I want to tell you about a tool, my cookbook, that is actually a tool for cooking with your teams. And I will try to convince you it's a great team building activity. And secondly, if you leave here with no interest in cooking with your teams, I want to share with you some leadership lessons that I learned in the kitchen. So hopefully you'll at least take that to your workplace and try to apply it with your teams. So before I get started on the talk, I want to get to know you a little, and I want you to get to know me a little bit better. So I just want to get a show of hands. How many of you are leading teams right now? Okay, most of you, okay? How many of you are foodies? Oh my God, almost as many foodies as leaders we have. This is amazing. This is amazing. And how many of you actually cook, or you just go to restaurants? How many really cook? Oh, this is I mean, I can't believe you're all here this morning. We have so much in common. This is going to be amazing.
What's a foodie?
A foodie is someone who loves food and wine and enjoys the company, okay?
I'm a foodie too.
All right, you're a foodie. All right. Anybody want to add to that definition? That's great. I'm glad you asked that question. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about my background and how, as a businesswoman, I came to write this particular cookbook. Let me make sure I know how to advance these slides here. I can probably do it down here. This is me coming over on the boat to America. Okay, I was 6 years old. My brother had just gotten a new camera, and so my brother, who was Lee's father, took this picture on the boat. This was 1956. We immigrated as a family from post-World War II Germany. We had nothing. We had absolutely nothing. The Lutheran Church paid for our trip to come over. I'm going to get all teary-eyed here. It was an amazing experience. There was no opportunity in post-World War II Germany. It was everyday life was an amazing challenge. There were no jobs, and my parents wanted to create a better opportunity for the children. But my parents themselves were actually refugees from a town in Lithuania called Vilkavišky. Vilkavišky is a town not too far from Vilnius, and my daughter Christina and I actually went there and discovered this town. So these pictures were not taken back in the time that they lived there. These pictures were taken a few years ago during a Discovering Our Roots trip, where we tried to find, where is this crazy place, and what's going on in Lithuania. And we actually, this was an amazing story. We walked into this building, which was in her town, and we said, and it's a museum now, this yellow building down here, and it's a museum now, and we said to the curator of the museum, my mother attended an agricultural academy here in Lithuania, and we're trying to find it. And he said, lady, you're sitting in it. Unbelievable. So it was fun to really see it. So this is where she was trained. My mother was trained here. And so when we came, as a child, when we came to America, even before then in Germany, I just remember cooking being the cornerstone of our daily lives. My family planned dinners over lunch. It was amazing, okay? And my mother, this is Chef Irma, in her kitchen in 1950s. I can't see exactly what the year is on that photograph, but she cooked everything from scratch. Everything was farm to table. We used to go berry picking. Remember strawberries in June, blueberries in July, August. That was kind of the beginning of apple season, September for sure, apples. And we would go and load up bushels of it and bring it home and do the canning and the cleaning and, put it away, either freezing it or getting it ready for the winter season. And so this was the extent of my culinary training, though. Other than that, I'm a businesswoman, okay? But this was the background. So when I started my career in 1973, I was the first woman to join the Indianapolis staff of Price Waterhouse. And at that time, men had just stopped the requirement for wearing hats like this to work. And women in pantsuits was completely unheard of. And so I felt a lot of stress related to being the first woman, and everybody had extra scrutiny. What's the chick doing? It was a high stress environment being the first woman in a male-dominated organization. So I would go home and cook for weekend relaxation and just as a way to unwind. And as a result of that cooking, I came to develop some expertise in the kitchen, and I used it as a therapeutic release. Now we have yoga and we have therapists, and it's okay to have a therapist. Back then, none of those things were acceptable. So for me, my stress relief was cooking. And it gave me instant gratification. I was totally in control from start to finish. I knew what I was going to do, I did it, and if the result was good enough, I got instant feedback. So people would say, man, this is really good. I go, wow, I'm going to do that again. In the business world, how many of you get instant feedback? Most of you know. We have to wait. Did we meet the goals for the quarter? Did we hit our numbers for the quarter? If any of you how many of you work in public companies? Oh man, do you get the beat down every quarter? So it's really stressful. But here you get instant gratification. You put a great meal on the table for people, you get instant feedback. So I kind of liked having total control of things because in the workplace we don't. And so that led me to cook more and more and more, and I started to develop a reputation for the things that came out of my kitchen, which was really great. But people learned that when they came to my kitchen, you get one freebie, you get one buy. The first time, I don't put you to work. The second time, I practice the same delegation philosophy in my kitchen that I practice in the workplace. So you come over the second time, be prepared to put on an apron, be prepared to get involved. And so this started to be a way of really interacting with my friends and my colleagues. It became a regular. And so I learned that you learn a lot about people by cooking together. You learn a lot. You have some incredible connections. And you learn about them in a different way than you would normally through cocktail party banter. Because, I'm cooking with you and you're saying, oh, my grandma used to make this. My grandma's Italian. We came from Italy. She came from Italy. She didn't speak a word of English. Or you're going to tell me, gee, my mother's from Mexico City. We had a cook who's still with us 80 years later. And all of a sudden you get to really appreciate the backgrounds of the people that you're interacting with. True connections are made, okay? And then, as I started to move into leadership positions over the years, I started to cook more and more with my work teams. And frequently, we did it as working retreats. This is my team from the Burnham Institute, and we're doing our planning, and we're doing our budgeting for the next year, and we all did a retreat together, and we broke up into two groups, and one group cooked for the whole team one night, and the other group cooked for the team the next night. It's amazing how much appreciation they gain for each other. There could be a little competition there. It isn't all smooth fun. There's some competition. But cooking with your work teams became a regular process that I followed. It was part of my managerial beliefs. And so as we did more and more of this, I decided I needed spreadsheets, okay? I'm an accountant, you know? And so I actually found that if you invite 8 to 10 people into your kitchen, it could be paralyzing if you don't have like tasks planned for them. Imagine 8 people saying to you, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? And so I decided the answer, spreadsheets. Okay, so we started making chopping grids, and you know, we had our family come down for Thanksgiving dinners. I had a list of everything that everybody was supposed to do. You know, my cousin didn't mind touching the, you know, the naked turkey, so she was in charge of washing all the parts, and you know, her husband was great at chopping. So anyway, spreadsheets were the answer. And as we had more and more success with this, we started to hear, my husband and I, why don't you write a book? And so I did. And so that was the beginning of the idea for the book. And we decided that we couldn't decide if it was going to be a business book or a friends and family book. And, but we decided we would make it a book that didn't really talk about business, but it could be a business tool. And so my friends kind of voted, you know, business book, fun book. They voted for the fun part, but I think it's a way to kind of marry the two and have fun at work. And so my goal, though, was to inspire other people to take what I've learned and to go have their own cooking events. And so 3 years after the start of the book, it was completed. And before I even had printed copies back from the printer, the book was selected for 2 book awards, the USA Best Books, one as a gift book and one as a cookbook. And that was just based on a copy I printed from my home printer. And then in May of this year, it won the IPPY Award, which is the Independent Publishing Awards. And that's another whole story that we could talk about sometime, because I formed a publishing company and I have publishing partners. And if any of you have a book in you, we can talk about that another time. But anyway, that was the idea of the book. And so my objective now is to convince you that you should get your teams together and use cooking as a tool for team building. How many of you have done team building events? How many of you have done outward bound activities? Okay, I've done those where I was up 80 feet on a tightrope and I got sewing machine leg. Have you ever heard of sewing machine leg? I couldn't control my leg. How many of you have done the truss thing where you fall back into the arms of a teammate? Oh my God. And so most of those, though, you weren't creating something, were you? Were you creating something of value? Okay. This is food. There's an end result. There's an outcome that matters. You have to eat this stuff. And so it's important. You're going to do something. You're going to create it. You're going to enjoy it together. If it doesn't work, you've just wasted the evening. It's like real world. It's like real business. You care about the outcome. And so that's why I think team building activities with a real result matter more. And that's my thesis for this. I'm sure that as leaders, you have all experienced some dysfunctional teams. No? Everything's perfect, everybody gets along, everybody's on the same page. No. So you've actually seen some discord. Maybe two people who can't get along on the team, so they refuse to listen to each other. People that refuse to show up for meetings in time, they want to show how busy and important they are. People who are just not cooperative by their very nature, they're having a bad day. What kind of team work issues have you seen? Anybody want to offer one? Anything special that, yes?
Anything you say is always negative. It's not enough to that person's standard.
Yep. Okay. It's negative, it won't work. Yeah, somebody told me recently that You should, when you're listening to other people, and I really have to work on this because I don't have this gene. If you listen to other people, you should listen to them with the thought that even if there's only a 1% probability that what they say is correct, you ought to hear them out. Now that changes the bar a lot, doesn't it? Changes the bar a whole bunch. And so we know that teamwork issues are important issues because we know that a well-functioning, cohesive team can get more done. And so team building is important. And we do have to work on those team dynamics all the time to make them better. So why cook? What's gained? As a member of the team, when you're cooking together, you're learning how to work with each other. You're in the kitchen of someone's home. This is not a commercial kitchen I'm advocating. This is in the home. In the ambiance, we have candlelight. We have the table set to go with your theme. This is a special environment. And all of a sudden, people come together, and they're softer. They're more gentle. They're having a glass of wine. They loosen up a little bit. You kind of get the flow, right? It's only 8 o'clock in the morning, but you could kind of remember what that feels like, that 6 o'clock glass of wine. Oh, my God, we're finally here. And all of a sudden, in this environment, you can actually think about teamwork and how could we do this better? We're having such a good time here. How do we take what we're experiencing here into the workplace and kind of keep it alive? And so that's what I'm advocating here, okay? So in the course of having done many, many of these events, I've learned a lot. And now, outside of trying to convince you to try this, I want to teach you what I've learned. And I want to share with you leadership lessons that I've learned in the kitchen, okay? So lesson number 1, clarity enhances teamwork, okay? When I go to have a dinner party, the first thing I do is I create a vision. I think about a theme. Let's maybe think about a menu of Greek food. That's where I start. You know, I'm not really sure what I want to do. I think about who my participants are, but let's just say I picked a Greek menu. So that's my vision, okay? And then next, I start thinking about and visualizing some of those dishes that would go with a Greek menu, okay? So I think lamb chops, chicken souvlaki, everybody loves a Greek salad. Okay, I think about baklava because that's a natural for a Greek dinner. And I start writing down my menu and editing it as I think, oh, that's too much work, that doesn't work, this isn't, you know, so I modify it, but all of a sudden now my menu is set and I have a vision of what those dishes look like. So the next thing I do, I start looking for specific recipes, okay? And those recipes then will allow me to plan my ingredients. They will allow me to plan how much time I need, what I need to do in advance. I have my timeline. I know my resources, okay? I'm starting to get there. I'm starting to get more clarity. I'm starting to think about, you know, who's going to help me? Who's going to do my dishes? Who's going to, yeah. So I have a clear vision of what I want to do. Imagine such clarity in the workplace. Everyone knows the mission. Everyone understands the goals. Everyone understands that you have limited resources to get the job done. How many of you work in companies where everyone can give the elevator speech? Every employee? Nobody? Maybe one person here. Does everybody know what the goals are for the year in your company? Yes. Okay, we got a couple of yeses here, but we don't have enough yeses here, okay? So clarity ensures that you get the job done. And without clarity, people are just going through motions. They need to understand it. When something goes wrong in the kitchen, I know what my boundaries and parameters are for fixing things, okay? If I burn the cake, I'm not going to keep my guests there until 3 o'clock in the morning while they wait for me to bake a new one, okay? I know what my boundaries are for making fixes. We should also share with our employees what our boundaries are for fixing things in the workplace, okay? They should know. I come from biotech, okay? They should know drugs fail, okay? You know, like 4 out of 5 fail, okay? So they should know that that might be a result. And we should talk about that openly. We should talk about the fact that drugs fail, and often do, and there might have to be consequences. Now, if they trust you, if they know you're going to look out for them, if that happens, they're not going to be running out the door looking to get out of biotech, okay? They're going to be thinking about how can I help make that success happen, okay? Drugs fail. Employees sometimes have to be let go. You have to talk about those things. You can't pretend like they don't exist. And so boundaries are important. So lesson number 1, clarity enhances teamwork. Okay. Lesson number 2, embrace vulnerability and authenticity. Okay, what does that mean? When people walk into my kitchen, it's amazing how many will say, oh my God, I don't know how to use any of these appliances. How do you know what to do with all this stuff? My idea of a home-cooked meal is a frozen dinner from Trader Joe's, okay? What? They're willing to be so open and transparent and vulnerable in my kitchen? That's amazing. That's amazing. We don't get that kind of behavior in the workplace, do we? And so everyone seems to, when they walk into the kitchen, leave their egos at the door. And they have the courage to be imperfect. It's amazing. And yet in the workplace, we don't see any of that. And what happens when you see that vulnerability and authenticity? What do you see? You see people stepping up to help each other. They mentor each other. They teach. They guide. They assist. Wow, that's an amazing concept, isn't it? And it's all because people are more willing to say, I'm not that competent here. I need some help. I need some guidance. We are so worried about being judged, continuously being judged in the workplace. Somebody might find us out. Somebody might know we don't know how to do that thing that we claim to be able to do on our resume. But maybe we do know how to do it, but we need a little help learning how to do it better. Okay, so you know, there's this openness all of a sudden to helping people when they admit that they don't know everything. I had the opportunity, and any of you recognize this woman here on the page with me, on this picture with me? That's Mary Ann Fox. She was the chancellor of the University of UCSD until just recently. Okay, Mary Ann Fox is a member of the National Academy, okay? She's a brilliant chemist and a lovely person. Mary Ann Fox came over to cook with me, and she admitted to me, I don't know how to peel apples. I've never peeled an apple in my life, okay? So I taught her. Who would think I could teach her anything? She put on that apron, and she allowed herself to be taught. And it's amazing. You know, this is the great equalizer. This seems to soften people. You put on this apron, and all of a sudden, they're more approachable, they're more real, and you feel like you can be more open with them. Did something just happen when I put this apron on?
You covered the microphone.
I covered the microphone. Oops. All right, how's that? So, my advice is that you encourage more authenticity and more vulnerability in the workplace to get people to really ask for help, okay? All right, lesson number 3. Let natural leaders emerge. In the workplace, or in the kitchen, I should say, there is no positional power, right? You walk in, you're all equal. What happens in the workplace is that everybody starts to do what they're good at. unless, of course, you give them very specific things to do, which I am known to do. But even within those mini teams that you create when you're using my book, you still have some freedom of who on the team does what, okay? So people start to become leaders. They show their leadership based on what they're good at. You know, some people are good at the grill. Some people are good at arranging the antipasto platter. Some people are good at making ravioli and working with dough. It's amazing that you just see these natural leaderships emerge. When they come into the kitchen, actually, that's Steve Altman, president of Qualcomm, holding up his hand and volunteering to do what he's good at. He said he was good at being the wine taster. Okay? And on the right there is Dan Bradbury, who you know well, from Amylin, former CEO of Amylin. And he's cleaning up the dishes. Did you know Dan could clean up the dishes? You did not. Yeah. So everybody rises to the occasion and does what's necessary and biased by what they're good at. So natural leaders emerge, okay? And in the workplace, we have all moved into these very, very narrowly defined jobs, okay? You go to college, you don't even know what you're gonna do when you graduate from college. And then you apply for a specific job with a specific job description, and you start doing that job. When do we ever explore other options, other alternatives? When do we discover that we could write cookbooks? Or when do we discover that we could cook? Or when do we discover that we could do something else that, you know, we're really good at, but we never had the chance? So if you allow your project teams a little more flexibility to let natural leaders emerge and rise to the occasion of what's going on in the workplace, you will discover new talents and strengths. Listen to everyone on the team, even if it's not that person's area of expertise. Listen to them and let them try something new. I have to tell you a story about my experience of doing a $200 million IPO when I was at Diversa Corporation. And Martin, I didn't know there was going to be anyone that could attest to this in the audience here, but Martin was my banker at the IPO. He was with Bear Stearns at the time.
We'll see what you say.
Okay, and then you. All right, so a couple of weeks before we were ready to embark on the IPO, a young secretary who was secretary to the manufacturing head walked into my office. It was 5 o'clock, and she said, boy, I really want to work on this IPO. I didn't even know she knew what an IPO was, okay? She's the manufacturing secretary. She said, I'm really good at writing. I really have these exceptional skills, and did you know that I worked internationally, and you know, I've done this teaching, and I didn't know any of that. She had a science undergrad. She understood some of the stuff better than I did on the science side. And she said, I really want to work on this. Will you help me? Will you enable me? And I said, sure. Do you have some time? So she sat in my office for 2 hours. I remember it distinctly. We sat there until 7 o'clock at night and talked about how we were going to start approaching writing of the prospectus for this IPO before the bankers got involved. And she said she wanted to lead that charge. So I thought, well, we've got some time cushion here. I think I'll give her a shot at it. So 10 days later, I walk into the conference room, and she has 20 senior level, director level people in the conference room, and she's leading a writing effort, section by section, in the conference room. And I thought, whoa, this is incredible. She, rallied the troops, and they listened to her, and she started writing as they were talking, and she's typing, and it's up on a screen, and it was amazing. She went on to become our IR PR manager, and subsequently was promoted to a manager position in that same functional area, became a director level person, and then went on to become like head of marketing for ResMed. I mean, she is a very well-accomplished executive now. But And she had all the skills, she just didn't have the right job, and she had to, kind of battle her way into a new area. So this is what can happen when you unleash the power of natural leadership. So let natural leaders emerge in the workplace, okay? Lesson number 4, practice makes perfect. Okay, you've all heard that a million times. Practice makes perfect. We hear it a million times, but how many times have you heard it in the workplace? When's the last time your boss said, take as much time as you need with that, okay? Or, yeah, why don't you practice that a few times before you get it right? Okay, no, that's not practical, that's not realistic. In the workplace, though, we do need to give people a little space. We want perfection. We want everybody to get it right the first time, every time, which is the total quality mantra. But it's not going to happen that way. And besides, do we always know what the right way is until we've tried it a few different ways and then zeroed in on the right way? So that could be the repeatable act instead of something that isn't the most efficient, most cost-effective. So practice makes perfect. This is a mini flan, okay? I had to make that mini flan 15 times before I stopped getting variability in my results, before I could write the recipe so that somebody else could follow it, okay? Lots of damn mini flans. No wonder I gained weight while I was writing this cookbook, right? So it takes a lot of practice on some things, sometimes. This woman had never made a tarte tatin before, okay? So we're having this cooking event, and she'd never even used a turkey baster, which was really interesting. So we taught her how to use a turkey baster and suck up the juices in the apples as they were caramelizing and spread it all over. She had so much fun, and she kept practicing and practicing and practicing. She went home the next day and made another tarte tatin because she was so good at it. So it is truly practice makes perfect. And as you know, sometimes it takes a little time to get it right. I had, in my job at Boehringer Mannheim Corporation, I had 7 bosses in 5 years, okay? Those poor guys were churned through so quickly, they never had a chance to do it right after they did it wrong. And so we need to be a little bit more patient in the workplace and allow this truth, practice makes perfect, to just resonate a little bit in the workplace. All right, lesson number 5. Break bread together. Okay? Breaking bread together is an incredible way to get to know people. And it makes you more like family. So what differentiates your colleagues at work from your friends? Any of you? Think about it. If you've had dinner with them, maybe? Do they maybe fall into another category? If you've had them to your house for dinner, maybe that puts them yet into another category, yes?
It establishes a bit of trust from even that distant person out of that group that you don't communicate with as much. While you bring a dish, and that person eating it gives another side of perspective on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You so connect with people over food. It's just, it's amazing. So Larry Page of Google was known to say recently that his grandfather used to take a club to work because he had to defend himself against his boss. I mean, we've come a long way since the days of Larry Page's grandfather, okay? We've come a long way. But Larry says now we treat our workers like family. And I believe that too. I believe we should treat our workers like family. And why? What's special about family? Well, families dine together. Families have real conversations at the dinner table. They talk about what's bothering them. They talk about what's going well. They talk about their challenges and the things that they're proud of. And as a result, family members look out for each other. They cover each other's back. You get to know your coworkers like that, and all of a sudden, you understand that one of your coworkers has a handicapped child or an aging parent, and the next day when they come to work a little late and frazzled, you're more sympathetic, you're more understanding, you're more willing to pitch in and help and cover for them. So when you dine together, it really brings out the knowledge of that person so that you can really have empathy, okay? So dining together helps with empathy. So most of you know that we in various business groups have different DNA, right? Sales organizations have different DNA from, you know, the accounting group, have different DNA from, you know, the marketing folks or the operations folks. And sometimes there are natural tensions between those groups, right? Everybody get along with everybody just perfectly? They all see things the same way? No. And so when you have those tensions, breaking bread together really helps with breaking down those barriers. So I'll tell you another story about one of my jobs. I won't necessarily give away the company. But in one of my jobs, you know, I was the CFO, and I just really couldn't connect with the head of sales, okay? He didn't get what I was trying to do every quarter. This is a public company, okay? I'm trying to, you know, have a clean cutoff. You know, my auditors are in. Ernst & Young, she's former Ernst & Young, so Ernst & Young was looking down our shoulders. We had to make sure we did everything right every quarter. So this guy's trying to cram in $1 more of revenue every quarter. I was ready to pull my hair out, okay? But I started to travel with him, okay? And as a result of traveling with him, because we were working on a special project, we were working on doing deals with a company in Europe. And as a result of that, we had all these dinners together. I found out he had an incredible knowledge about wines. And he started teaching me about different varieties of wines, you know, different countries and the wines they produce, what goes well with different foods. I was just kind of a beginning wine drinker at this point in my life. And so it was amazing. I had so much respect for his wine knowledge that I thought, wow, I'm going to reciprocate. I'm going to teach him about accounting cutoff. You know, I thought that was a pretty fair trade, didn't you? Anyway, it transformed the relationship, okay? And it wasn't 1 or 2 dinners. That one took a few more dinners to really get through those barriers. Break bread together. It makes you more like family. All right, lesson number 6. Everyone shares in success or failure. How are we doing? When you cook together, or when you cook, with a group or for a group, you could have success, great success, and you all enjoy the output of your labors. If something goes wrong, however, you share in the consequences, okay? But those consequences can lead to some learnings, okay? I learned that I will never buy a pot holder with a metal or wooden hook on it again because it got stuck between the racks of my oven, okay? And as I went to pull out that 400-degree pie, the pot holder stayed behind, and I was holding a 400-degree pie in my hand. So naturally, I dropped it. All right, so I learned something. Never do that again. But what the result of this is we had to eat 1 pie instead of having 2 pies to eat, okay? So we learned from this. When you put lobster in the paella, you don't pick out the lobster pieces and give them to the most rewarding members of the team, right? No. We don't even know who the most deserving members of the team are, right? You share equally in success or failure. And part of that success is to celebrate together. How many of you finish a project and then immediately get put on the next project with no time for reflection, celebration, acknowledgement, or time to just cool down? Most of you? Yeah? Okay. It's really important to have time to reflect. When you cook a meal together, it's a natural part of the experience to sit down, to celebrate, to enjoy, to share, and reflect on what happened. And when you cook with your work teams, you can talk about, wow, what went well? And actually at every course, when you sit down, you should have a conversation. And you can plan that conversation as a leader ahead of time. When we sit down for this course, we're going to talk about what worked well and how we can take that to the workplace. There's another element of this issue of sharing equally in success or failure that I want to advocate here today. How many of you have compensation systems that are determined by the team, where everyone on the team shares in some element of compensation? A few of you do. That's amazing. That's really forward thinking. Most companies don't differentiate or pay based on performance of the team. Most companies, you get individual merit reviews, you get individual bonuses, you get individual stock awards. But what do we advocate? Work with your team. But what do we reward? Individual performance, okay? If you have a sales organization and you differentiate your compensation for product A from product B, product A has a higher commission. Don't expect them to sell product B. You get what you pay for. So if you don't pay for team achievements, don't expect people to maximize the effect of the team. They're going to maximize their individual performance and their individual reward system, okay? So celebrate success, take time to reflect, think about your compensation systems, because everyone shares equally in success or failure. So my next slide is my call to action. Get out of the office and into the kitchen, okay? Work with your work team, and don't do it once. Do it continuously. Do it for a fine-tuning of your team dynamics. Do it to integrate a new team member. These things always change, you know? Do it to, you know, I wish we could actually cook with every job candidate, because imagine how many hiring mistakes we could avoid by really getting to know those people, okay? Getting to know them. But try it with your work teams, and if you don't want to go cook, then go think about how you might apply some of the lessons that I've learned in the kitchen. Thank you.